And the winner is Peter Falk, Columbo.
Columbo always caught the bad guys, but Peter Falk was fighting his own battles. While filming his iconic role, he was drinking heavily and smoking 3 packs daily. His affairs were Hollywood's open secret. After 16 years, his first wife couldn't take it anymore and filed for divorce. The saddest part? He became estranged from his daughters. When Alzheimer's took his mind in 2008, his own daughter needed court permission just to visit for 30 minutes. But this is nothing compared to what we're going to reveal next. Stay tuned. Peter Falk was born in the Bronx in 1927. His family was Jewish, with roots in Eastern Europe, Russia, Hungary, and Bohemia. His father owned a store. His mother worked with numbers. Times were tough, especially after the Great Depression hit. Like many others, the Falks had to leave the city behind and look for something more affordable. When Peter was just 3, his preschool teacher noticed something strange. He tilted his head in a weird way to see things. That tiny detail led to a life-changing diagnosis: eye cancer. Doctors moved fast. Within 2 days, they removed his right eye. For the rest of his life, he wore a glass eye. It gave him a distinct look, one that would later become iconic. But back then, it was just a tough start. Most kids would have crumbled. Peter didn't. He grew up with confidence, humor, and drive. By age 6, his family had moved to Ossining, a small town near New York City. The town was known for one thing: Sing Sing Prison. Peter's dad sold clothes to the inmates, and Peter often went with him. He saw criminals up close. He even played basketball games against prison teams. One of the inmates, nicknamed Piggy Sands, made a lasting impression. They were fast, tough, and talented. Years later, when Peter played detectives or crooks on screen, it all came back to him. At Ossining High School, Peter stood out. He was class president for 3 years, vice president for 1. He was popular, smart, and funny. His fake eye didn't stop him from playing sports. He played baseball and basketball with grit. One day, he was called out at third base, but he believed he was safe. In front of the whole crowd, he popped out his glass eye and handed it to the umpire. "You'll do better with this one," he said. The whole place exploded with laughter. That moment said a lot about him. He didn't hide from his challenges. He turned them into punchlines. After high school, Peter wanted to serve his country in World War II. But every military branch turned him down because of his eye. Then he found a loophole. The merchant marine didn't care about vision as much. He joined in 1945, worked in the kitchen, and served at sea for 18 months. He joked that the only person on a ship who needed to see was the captain. And even the Titanic's captain had trouble with that. His path after that was anything but straight. He tried college at Hamilton, but didn't last a month. Too serious. No girls, not enough fun. He left and, in a bold move, almost joined the Israeli army in 1948 during their war for independence. He had no deep political reason. He just wanted excitement. He found a secret group in Manhattan helping Americans enlist. He got a ship assignment. But the war ended 8 days later. Just like that, the plan disappeared. Falk's curiosity pushed him beyond borders. After the merchant marine, he wandered through post-war Europe. For 6 months, he worked on the railways in communist Yugoslavia. It was strange and distant from anything he knew, but that's what made it worth it. He wasn't chasing fame yet, he was chasing experience. Eventually, he came back and gave college another shot. He went back to Hamilton, spent time at the University of Wisconsin, then finally landed at the New School in New York. There, in Greenwich Village, he earned a degree in literature and political science in 1951. That combo summed him up well, part dreamer, part thinker. After graduating, he followed a girl to Paris. That was Peter Falk in a nutshell: impulsive, passionate, always chasing something. In 1953, he took a more traditional path. He got a master's degree in public administration from Syracuse. The plan was to work in government, but he later admitted he had no real passion for it. He even tried joining the CIA. They rejected him because of a union he once belonged to as a cook. It had communist ties, though Falk wasn't involved. Still, that was enough to close the door. So, he took a job in Connecticut as a budget analyst. He hated it. Didn't even know where the office was on his first day. But while crunching numbers by day, he started acting by night. He joined a local theater group and fell in love with performing. He wasn't trained. He wasn't even sure he was any good, but something clicked. He started studying with a legendary acting teacher named Eva Le Gallienne. To get into her class, he lied, said he was a professional actor. One day, she called him out for being late. He confessed the truth. He wasn't a pro. She looked at him and said, "Well, you should be." That was the moment. He took that one sentence and turned it into a new life. He quit his government job. He moved to Greenwich Village. And with nothing but a recommendation letter in his hand, Peter Falk decided to become an actor. He had lost his right eye to cancer when he was just 3. Many thought it would keep him off the screen, but Falk didn't care. He had already been acting in community theater with a group called the Mark Twain Maskers. He'd done serious plays like The Crucible and the Caine Mutiny Court-Martial. Those small steps gave him the courage to go all in. Greenwich Village in the 1950s was the heart of the arts scene. Loud, messy, creative. That's where Falk wanted to be. While still working his day job in Hartford, Falk started studying acting. He somehow talked his way into an elite class run by legendary actress Eva Le Gallienne in Westport. She only taught professionals. Falk was not one. He lied to get in, then drove 70 miles every week to attend. He always arrived late. One day, Le Gallienne asked why. He told her he worked in Hartford. She asked how he made a living acting there. When he confessed he wasn't a professional actor at all, she looked at him and said, "Well, you should be." That one sentence changed everything. Before he left, she gave him a recommendation to an agent at William Morris. Falk also trained with Sanford Meisner, one of the most respected acting teachers in America. His methods focused on honesty and emotional reaction, skills that would shape Falk's performances for years to come. In January 1956, Falk made his first New York stage appearance. It was in Don Juan at the 4th Street Theater. The show lasted only one night, not the best start. But by May, he had a role in The Iceman Cometh at Circle in the Square. It was a serious play with big names like Jason Robards. It got noticed. In November, Falk made his Broadway debut in Diary of a Scoundrel. It only ran for 3 weeks, but it proved he belonged on that stage. By the end of 1956, he was in St. Joan alongside Siobhan McKenna. That one had a solid run through January 1957. In just a year, Falk had gone from a government worker to a working actor in major Broadway shows. Film, however, was a tougher hill to climb. When Falk first approached Columbia Pictures, the studio head said, "For the same price, I can get an actor with 2 eyes." That kind of rejection would crush most people, but Falk kept going. In 1958, he landed a small role in Wind Across the Everglades, directed by Nicholas Ray. It wasn't a big part, but it got him on a movie set. In 1959, he played a beatnik killer in a Canadian crime film called The Bloody Brood. Not glamorous, but it added to his experience. At the same time, he was making his mark in television. From 1957 on, he showed up in big anthology shows like Studio One, Robert Montgomery Presents, and Kraft Television Theater. He even got a screen test for the film Marjorie Morningstar, but didn't land the part. Hollywood still wasn't sure about him. Then came Murder, Inc. in 1960. Falk played real-life mob enforcer Abe Reles. It was a low-budget film shot in just 9 days. Falk found his costume in thrift shops. He shaped the character from memories of shady guys he'd seen at a pool hall growing up. The result was electric. A New York Times critic wrote that Falk seemed harmless until he pulled out an ice pick. It was that jarring twist, that sudden coldness in his performance, that made people stop and watch. Despite the film's budget and limited promotion, Falk earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He went up against stars from massive studio pictures like Spartacus and The Apartment. He didn't win, but the nomination alone was a huge statement. Hollywood was finally paying attention. That same year, Falk also got an Emmy nomination. In 1961, he became the first actor ever nominated for both an Oscar and an Emmy in the same year. He did it again the next year. In 1961, something incredible happened to Peter Falk. He was nominated for his second Oscar in a row, Best Supporting Actor for Pocketful of Miracles. Just a year earlier, he'd gotten his first nomination for Murder, Inc. That alone would have been impressive. But here's the wild part, he also got an Emmy nomination that same year, and he pulled that off 2 years in a row. No actor had ever done that before. At the center of it all was a troubled production. Director Frank Capra later said making the film was agony, but Falk was the one bright spot. Capra even said Falk made him forget about tired blood and wanting to murder Glenn Ford. He loved Falk's performance so much, he once reshot a scene just to watch it again. That same film also launched Anne Margaret's career, so while she was stepping onto the screen for the first time, Falk was making history. But what really set Falk apart wasn't just awards. It was how deeply he threw himself into every role. Directors said he worked like a man possessed. In 1962, after picking up 2 Oscar nominations and winning an Emmy for the Dick Powell Theater, Falk went into overdrive. He didn't just act, he became his characters. He once spent 3 weeks with real police officers before playing one. He went on overnight stakeouts. When filming The Great Race, he demanded a full childhood backstory for a character with only 14 minutes of screen time. In 1964, he dropped 18 pounds in 2 weeks for a role. And when he got injured on set, he refused pain meds. He said the real pain would make the performance better. His intensity even followed him off camera. On one 1967 project, he stayed in character so long, his co-star Julie Harris asked to eat lunch somewhere else. She just couldn't take it anymore. Even while diving deep into characters, Falk juggled a career in both TV and movies from 1961 to 1967. He started out on TV in the late 50s, appearing on shows like Robert Montgomery Presents and Kraft Television Theater. By 1961, he was nominated for an Emmy for The Law and Mr. Jones and popped up in the premiere of Target, The Corruptors, with Walter Matthau. On The Twilight Zone, he played a paranoid dictator. On Alfred Hitchcock's show, he was a creepy gangster and a fake preacher. But he wasn't just doing dark stuff. On Wagon Train, he played a man forced to choose between saving his brother or a wagon master. At the same time, he kept landing roles in big films like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World and The Great Race. In 1962, he pulled off something no one else had. An Emmy and an Oscar nomination in the same year, again. But not everything was smooth behind the scenes. Falk was gaining a reputation for being a real handful. Directors said he argued over everything: lines, camera angles, even doors. On one movie, he made them do 37 takes of a simple entrance because the door wasn't opening right. He fought with director Edward Dmytryk so badly during Anzio that they only spoke through assistants. By 1966, some directors were adding Falk clauses to their contracts, preparing for the chaos he brought. One producer said, "You put up with the hell because what ends up on screen is heaven." But not everyone agreed. Some producers stopped working with him altogether. Then, in 1968, everything changed. On February 20th, Falk put on a wrinkled raincoat and became Lieutenant Columbo. At first, he wasn't even supposed to get the role. The writers had wanted Bing Crosby, but Crosby said no. He didn't want to take time away from golf. Before Falk, Columbo had already been played by 2 other actors. First on stage in 1962, then on TV in 1960. But when director Richard Irving suggested Falk, the writers hesitated. He was too young, they thought, but Falk told them he would kill to play that cop. That passion led to him playing Columbo for 35 years. The look of the character came straight from Falk. That old raincoat, it was his. He wore it so much it had to be replaced after 25 years because it was falling apart. Falk wanted Columbo to look like someone you'd ignore on the street. In one episode, he was mistaken for a homeless man. It worked perfectly. Suspects always underestimated him. That was the trap. They saw a rumpled, clumsy guy. But behind the bad haircut and cheap cigars was a razor-sharp mind. Even his dog didn't have a name, just Dog. And then came the catchphrase, "Just one more thing." That wasn't planned. The writers added it as a quick fix during a scene rewrite. They didn't want to retype the whole page, so they had Columbo turn around and ask one last question. It stuck. Falk turned it into a weapon. Just when the suspects thought they were safe, boom, one more thing. It became so iconic that Falk later used it as the title of his memoir. But Columbo wasn't just famous for the catchphrase. The show changed everything with its unique format. Most crime shows were whodunits. You didn't know who the killer was. But with Columbo, the audience saw the murder at the beginning. The suspense came from watching Columbo figure it out. It wasn't about who did it. It was about how he'd catch them. The format, called a how catch 'em, let viewers focus on the clever details. Tiny things like a shoelace, a car's air conditioner, or leftover caviar. It was more like watching a chess match than a chase. You knew the outcome, but watching it unfold was the thrill. Peter Falk didn't just play a detective. He became a legend. His role as Columbo made him one of the most celebrated actors in TV history. He won 4 Primetime Emmy Awards for 1972, 1975, 1976, and even again in 1990. In 1973, he picked up a Golden Globe too. But the most surprising part? He was the first actor ever nominated for both an Emmy and an Oscar in the same year. And he pulled off that rare double twice, once in 1961 and again in 1962. By 1976, he was earning $250,000 for every Columbo episode. That's over $1.3 million per episode in today's money. It was the highest salary in TV at the time. Why? Because NBC couldn't afford to lose him. Columbo was pulling Nielsen ratings in the 30s. Advertisers were paying top dollar. Everyone wanted to be on during Columbo. Even decades later, the love didn't fade. In 1996, TV Guide ranked Falk 21st among the 50 greatest TV stars of all time. And 2 years later, they named Columbo the 7th greatest TV character ever. One particular episode from 1971, Murder by the Book, was directed by a young Steven Spielberg. That one made it all the way to number 16 on their list of the 100 greatest episodes ever made. Columbo also stood out for its villains. Not just random actors, big stars. It became an honor to play a killer on the show. Only 5 actors ever played more than one murderer. Patrick McGoohan did it 4 times. Robert Culp did 3. Then came Jack Cassidy, George Hamilton, and William Shatner. McGoohan played killers named Nelson, Oscar, Colonel Rumford, and Eric. 4 totally different men. Culp, in one episode, played a murderer who used subliminal images to trick someone into being killed. That was in Double Exposure, back in 1973. The show often cast famous, rich-looking stars as murderers and put them up against the scruffy, trench coat-wearing Columbo. It was always brains over status. Poor guy versus powerful elite. That setup made Columbo more than just crime TV. It made it a commentary on class. Behind the scenes, things weren't peaceful. Falk clashed with NBC. The producers wanted to keep Columbo off-screen for the first 20 minutes of an episode. NBC hated that idea. They also hated the idea of the unseen wife that Columbo always talked about. Falk and the creative team threatened to quit. The tension didn't stop there. By 1973, Falk was so paranoid about losing control of the show that he demanded someone on staff who could protect his interests. Writers had to keep scripts locked up. Somehow, Falk would still get early drafts. When producers tried pushing him too hard, Falk would launch into intense speeches, so fierce they sounded like scenes from gangster movies. And they worked. Executives backed off. He even stopped production by pretending to be sick when they wouldn't let him direct. Eventually, they gave in. He directed Blueprint for Murder in 1971. But all that power came with a price. By 1978, NBC had enough. Falk wanted more money. Budgets were ballooning. The show was canceled. Even away from Columbo, Falk pushed boundaries. In 1967, he ran into indie director John Cassavetes at the Paramount cafeteria. Cassavetes had an idea about three friends going wild after their buddy dies. That turned into Husbands in 1970, but funding collapsed. The actors, including Falk, gave up nearly $1 million combined to finish it. Falk wasn't used to Cassavetes' loose style. He once admitted, "I don't know what he's talking about," but they figured it out. Later, Falk starred in A Woman Under the Influence in 1974. He played a working-class husband struggling with his wife's mental illness. That film got 2 Oscar nominations. Even feminist writer Betty Friedan praised Husbands. In a 1971 New York Times piece, she said it showed how men were trapped too, lonely, lost, and looking for real connection. Falk also had a major comedy win. In 1979, The In-Laws hit theaters. It had a $9 million budget, but made $38.2 million. He played Vince Ricardo, a strange CIA agent dragging his future in-law, a nervous dentist played by Alan Arkin, into chaos. One scene where Falk yells "Serpentine" as Arkin dodges imaginary bullets is still quoted today. Critics loved them together. Some said they were like a new version of The Producers. The film became so iconic that the CIA even showed it to new recruits at their training camp. When a 2003 remake came out, it didn't compare. The original stayed a classic. Then came one of his softest roles. In The Princess Bride, 1987, Falk played the grandfather telling a fairy tale to his sick grandson. The film made $30.9 million. Not huge at the time, but it grew into a cult classic. Falk's voice added a wise, warm tone. He said lines like "as you wish," with just the right balance of love and wit. His scenes gave the film its heart. Even Roger Ebert pointed out that Falk's voice had a rough charm, not too sweet, just enough edge to keep it interesting. The movie later got picked for preservation in the United States National Film Registry. By now, Falk had done it all: drama, comedy, even directing. He directed more Columbo episodes, and some insiders said he secretly directed others too. He became known for doing dozens of takes to get one line right. And as the years passed, his paycheck kept growing. By the time Columbo returned in 1989, he was earning $600,000 per episode. He even planned a final movie called Columbo's Last Case. It would start at the detective's retirement party, but the network wasn't interested, and Falk's health was fading. Still, that never-satisfied, always curious part of him stayed. The same part that made Columbo tilt his head, squint, and say, "Just one more thing." That's the side of Peter Falk that never stopped working, never gave up, and never let go of the story. Peter Falk looked like a man who had it all: fame, money, awards, and a role, Lieutenant Columbo, that made him a household name. But behind that charming, rumpled detective was a life full of pain, betrayal, and conflict. It started in 1960 when he finally married Alice Mayo, a woman he had chased for 12 years. They met at Syracuse University, fell in love, and adopted 2 daughters, Catherine and Jackie. That same year, Falk was nominated for an Oscar. Everything looked perfect from the outside, but the cracks were already forming. While the world saw him as a loyal, kind-hearted detective on screen, Falk was living a very different life off camera. He had a reputation for chasing women on almost every film set he walked on. Crew members would quietly bet who he'd flirt with next. His affair with Sherah, 22 years younger, started while he was still married to Alice. She wasn't the only one. Falk was known to juggle multiple women, sometimes in different cities. Hollywood insiders weren't surprised. His cheating became an open secret. But his problems didn't stop there. Falk was a heavy drinker and a chain smoker, 3 packs a day. Vodka at lunch, arguments on set. He'd stop filming every hour just to light a cigarette. Directors hated working with him. He demanded rewrites, fought over camera angles, and made every production slower and more expensive. Studios loved his talent but hated the chaos that came with it. By 1976, some were even scared to hire him. At home, things were worse. Alice tried to keep the marriage together for 16 years. She focused on raising their daughters and kept quiet about his affairs. But by late 1975, she'd had enough. Falk had started openly dating Sherah, and Alice couldn't take it anymore. She filed for divorce in 1976. No drama, just a quiet goodbye. She got the house and support, but never bad-mouthed him publicly. For their daughter's sake, she stayed civil. Meanwhile, Falk was making $250,000 an episode on Columbo. But as his star rose, he drifted further from his daughters. Between 1971 and 1976, he was gone for weeks at a time. Catherine, his older daughter, later sued him after he stopped paying for her college at Syracuse. Even though he was worth over $5 million by 1975, he fought her in court. Their relationship collapsed. And when he married Sherah in December 1977, barely a year after his divorce, things only got worse. Sherah had won Miss Pennsylvania World in 1970. She was beautiful, ambitious, and determined. Their marriage lasted 33 years, longer than anyone expected. But it was full of fights, separations, and tension. And as Falk got older, things took a darker turn. In 2006, Falk released his memoir, Just One More Thing. It was funny, honest, and messy, just like him. He didn't follow a timeline, he just told stories. Childhood cancer that took his eye. 12 years struggling to become an actor. Friendships with legends like John Cassavetes. It was Falk, in his own words. But soon after, everything changed. Dental surgery in 2007 seemed to trigger a rapid decline. By 2008, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Then came the legal war. In 2009, his daughter Catherine filed for conservatorship. She said Sherah was keeping her away from her father. Sherah said Catherine was just after money. In court, both sides accused each other. Catherine claimed she had once received hundreds of postcards from her dad. Now, she said, Sherah was slamming the door in her face. Sherah's lawyers fought back with Falk's diary, saying he had been estranged from Catherine for years. The judge tried to find middle ground. Sherah got control, but had to let Catherine visit for just 30 minutes every other month. By then, Falk's mind was so far gone, he didn't even recognize her. It was heartbreaking. The man who played a detective, loved for his empathy, couldn't even remember his own daughter. And then came the final blow. On June 23, 2011, Peter Falk died at 83. Pneumonia and Alzheimer's ended a life that had once burned so brightly. But Catherine didn't get a call, no family message, no private goodbye. She found out through the news, just like everyone else. The world mourned. Steven Spielberg praised him. Rob Reiner called him one of the best comedic actors ever. But behind the tributes was a silence that hurt more than words ever could. His daughters were left out again.